Hey everyone, welcome to Pencil versus Pixel. I'm your host Caesar, and I'm very excited to introduce my guest today, which is Paul Jarvis. Paul, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Paul is a web designer who has built and designed websites for amazing entrepreneurs who have built online empires he's been doing this for over a decade. Paul is also founder of pjrvs.com and author of Be Awesome at Online Business and Eat Awesome. So, Paul, before we continue, I'm going to ask you what I ask all my guests. Pencil or pixel?
Pixel.
Awesome. Good choice. So, Paul, I've given a little background about you, but let's get to know you a bit better. Go ahead and give us a little overview of what you do.
Sure. So I don't actually know what I do. It changes every day. But for the most part, what I do is web design and writing. So web design, I do the design of websites and I build out WordPress themes for my clients. And then for writing, I write articles and also books.
So about design, so did you always want to be a designer or in particular a web designer?
Well, I'm old and I started a long time ago, so there kind of wasn't, when I was in school, there wasn't web designer, right? So when the web started to turn graphical and start to get a bit more mainstream, I just started messing around and making my own websites. I think like in the GeoCities days and that kind of thing, or even a bit before that. So I kind of accidentally became a web designer because one of the sites that I built got really, really popular. And then an agency, I was living in Toronto at the time, an agency contacted me and were like, hey, we've just invented a job called web designer. Do you want to be a web designer? And I was like, I don't know what that is. That sounds good. So it just kind of happened that way. And that was, I don't know, probably like 17, 18 years ago. Like that was a long time ago. Like I had just finished high school pretty much. So that was, yeah. So I kind of accidentally got into design and the web.
So you were working at a place?
Yeah, I worked at an actual company. I was employable for a very tiny amount of time. I worked at an agency in Toronto for about a year and a half, 2 years, and I started out as the web designer, and then I moved up and became the creative director of like a team of web designers and stuff, and then I left that job fairly quickly. But yeah, I did work at an actual company for a little bit.
So where did you go after that job? Did you begin working on your own, or?
Well, there's kind of a pattern. I accidentally became an entrepreneur after that. So I wasn't happy at the company, the boss I didn't like, and I decided, okay, I need to figure out how to make a resume because I'd never made a resume before. So the day after I quit, I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out I got some books because at the time there wasn't like, you couldn't just go on the internet and look at stuff. Well, maybe you could, I just didn't know. But yeah, so I got some books on like the resume books. And so I was starting to do research in that, and I kept getting interrupted by calls from clients of the agency wanting to go wherever I would go work next. They were saying like, well, what agency are you going to? Because we know you did all the work and we love your work and we love working with you. We want to keep working with you. So wherever you go, we want to follow you. So after I think the third or fourth call, I just figured, why figure out this resume thing when I could be making money and doing work? So I started my own company instead. And that was, probably about 15 years ago or so. I think 1997 I started that, and it's been going ever since.
What was it that made them want to come back to you?
I think it was my stunning personality. I think it was probably the fact that I'm really focused on delivering, and and even back then, if I said I was going to do something, it would get done, and that doesn't always happen in agencies. That obviously, as you probably know, doesn't always happen in the world of creative work. A lot of creatives overpromise and underdeliver, whereas I was really focused on promising and then over-delivering on time and on budget every time. So they kind of saw that this was different from other agencies they worked with, and even different from the agency before I started versus after I started. So I think they just saw both the work ethic and the ability for me to be able to say, okay, this is how long this thing's going to take, and getting it done in that exact amount of time every single time.
So you kept your word, and
I did. I said reputation. Yeah.
right?
And that's really all I've done since then.
Wow. So do you ever advertise for work, or is it sort
I
of
don't. Yeah, I don't even have business cards. I
no
don't.
way?
I usually have on my website that I'm not available for new work, just because I don't really rely on. I don't, even though I do websites, I don't rely on the internet at all for work or promotion or anything like that. And I wrote an article in Fast Company probably 2 weeks ago about the fact that I do work instead of promotion. And what I mean by that is, instead of spending some of my time like promoting or tweeting or using, I don't even have a Facebook account, but like, instead of promoting what I do, I just make sure the clients that I have are always 100% happy with the work. So then they become my sales force. So I don't need business cards because other people are telling people that they work with about me. And because I'm an artist, I sign my work. So my name is at the bottom of every website, kind of tiny, but it's still there. And I get a ton of work from the websites that I've done because it says like design and code by Paul Jarvis kind of thing. So that's really how I do it. Like I didn't, for probably about 10 years, I had a one-page website that just said like I build websites and had a list of clients. Because I don't use the internet to get work, even though I make websites for a living. I don't use that to do any kind of sales or business development.
So Paul, what does a creative have to do to sort of be at that level where people are coming to us without having to advertise for ourselves?
Well, I mean, it takes more time than people think, and a lot because we live in a society where everything happens right away, all the time for everything. Like you need to know something, you just look it up on Google and you have the answer instantly. So it takes more time than people think because I don't know, like I've been doing this for almost 2 decades now, like for myself and for the other company. But it's kind of like, it takes a while to build up. And Jason Santa Maria gave a great talk on Creative Mornings about saying no. And that was a really good talk because he talks about how, and I wrote an article kind of along the same lines as well, this week or last week, I can't remember, about we deserve the clients, as creatives, we deserve the clients that we get. But you need to, and the article is about like saying no to everyone but your right client. And if you can't teach and educate your client, if you have frustrations, like creative people like to bitch and moan about like, oh, that the client wanted to make that logo bigger again and things like that. And if you can't use those opportunities to teach your clients, then it's kind of your own fault. But in order to get to that point, you do need to take on work that might not be the best fit at the beginning, or you might need to take on work because you need to like pay rent or eat. And obviously those are important things. So you can't always be able to pick the right clients or be able to wait for clients to come to you from word of mouth and that sort of thing. So there, in the beginning, you got to hustle more. And that's like it is when you start any company. It doesn't matter if it's creative or selling some kind of uncreative cog or something, but you got to hustle more in the beginning to kind of get your name out there and to establish yourself as an expert in what you do. You need to kind of like pound the pavement a little bit. And I did a business cards back in the day, quite a while ago, but like I did a business cards. I went to networking events and that sort of thing. And I really worked at fostering relationships and not just trying to like sell people all the time, like actually talking to people. And if I could help other people with small things, then I would. And I really kind of grew it that way. So then now I'm luckily in a place where I have a waiting list all the time and I can turn down work that doesn't seem like a great fit because I know the type of work that I really like.
That's awesome. So that brings up a great point where, you know, your technique is all about building relationships and, you know, kind of growing those relationships, right? And that leads to the bigger, better jobs that you actually do want to work or do. which is really awesome. That's very important for creatives to know, or to sort of put themselves out there, in person. Do you do a lot of face-to-face meeting, or how do you?
You can tell by my laughter probably what my answer is. No, dude, I live in the woods on an island pretty much. Like, I don't really see, all of my clients are either in New York or LA, or a couple in Vancouver, some in the UK. So I really don't see clients face to face, other than like this, like on a Skype video chat.
Nice.
So I don't really see people face to face. But when I was coming up in it, I was in Toronto for a while, which is, everybody does some creative something there. And then I was in Vancouver for 10 years, which is like Canada's tech hub for like indie startups kind of thing. So, and I went to tons of networking events, even though I'm pretty introverted, and that's really like pulling teeth for me. But I did those things, and I got kind of cemented in that scene from like making connections with people and talk, not trying to pitch people, but just like having a real conversation like two human beings.
So let me change it up here. Let's talk about your book. Sure. Great book.
Thank you.
Building about being awesome at online business. So what led to creating this book? What was it what did you think and made you just do it?
Sure. So with that, and it comes back to something I was just talking about with I should have written that article, "We Deserve the Clients We Get," first, and then release the book, because that was kind of the impetus for the book, right? Like, I was sick of being frustrated with clients not understanding how the web works. But it's not their fault, because they're not web professionals. They're not designers. They're not programmers. So if they're asking for things that doesn't make sense or that doesn't work, it's my fault for not teaching them properly. And I saw that there's a gazillion web design books for web designers, and there's a gazillion web programming books for programmers, and there's a gazillion like internet marketing books written by like douchebag scammers. So I kind of saw a place that a book could exist where there's no bullshit. It's just kind of like, if you're going to have an online business, and every business is online, whether it is or not, there's still people talking about it for good or bad on the internet. So I saw a place for a book like that to exist, where if somebody wants to build a website, then they can read this book. So if a client comes to me, then I ask them to read. I don't force them to read the book, but I ask them if they want to read the book, and I send it to them, just because it has the information that I think, and I tested this with a lot of people that I know that hire web designers and that sort of thing. And it has the answers, and it asks the questions that people need to know when they're the client of web design, or client of web development, or a client of having a website built. So I was kind of really going after my audience as a web designer, not to try to drum up business, but to try to educate them so they would know more if they're working with me or working with anybody else.
Tell us about a time when you fell flat on your face, when something just did not go your way. What happened, and what did you do to pick yourself back up?
Sure. I mean, like, I fail at stuff all the time. Like, I started, like, with the company that I run now that was called 230. I guess it still kind of is, or PJ. But I don't care what the website is called or what my company's called. But other than that, like, that's run well, and that's been great for a long time. But I've started, I think, 3 startups that have just completely, like, no customers, or one customer, or it didn't get on the market right. And it just, like, I've had companies that I started that just completely flopped. And I've won, it was an ad network, kind of like the deck that 37 Signals does, except for environmental and eco type projects. So instead of like design focus, it was kind of eco focus. And like, we launched that right around the time, I think it was 2008, when all the markets crashed and everybody's marketing budgets turned to like a big fat zero. And we launched, and we had 0 clients. And like, wow. The programmer now works at Twitter, and he's like pretty high up at Twitter. So like, the code was good. The design, at least I think, was pretty good. The sales and marketing guy that was involved has bought and sold companies in the millions since. So like, we had the right team, we had everything in place, and we had a good product, but the market just wasn't there. And the market told us, like, this is great, but we're not going to use it. Like, we had 0 clients, and we tried for months and months. We eventually just had to call it quits because it was just like, there's no point. We all have other jobs that are successful, so it's kind of like, we kind of got to call it on this one. And I mean, that's happened, a bunch of times. That's only one example, but it's happened a bunch of times. So yeah, but I kind of like experimenting with things and trying things and pushing myself in new directions. Like with writing, I didn't write until, I wasn't like writing books or anything like that until about 2 years ago. And I just thought that I want to push myself. I think every creative should have a side project, and that's my like get up on a soapbox. Like, your clients are never going to push you as far as you can be pushed. You have to do that for yourself, and you have to have side projects. Whether they make money or not is beside the point. But you should always have something that you're working on that you're just super fucking stoked on, that you just want to like get out into the world, that really pushes you creatively, or to learn a new skill is great for learning new skills, or to learn something about yourself, or learn something about your craft. And I'll get off my soapbox now, but yeah, I don't even remember what the question was.
No. Tell me about your new book.
Sure.
You have a
So
new one coming out.
My new book is called Everything I Know, and it should hopefully be out the beginning of next year. And it's really about, like, my last book was Be Awesome at Online Business, was very tactical, and at the end of every chapter there's like a worksheet for people to go through. And if it's a chapter about finding a web designer, it's like, these are the 10 questions to ask a web designer. So it's very hands-on and practical, whereas the new book is really the story of my career a bit, but also extracting the universal of learning how to find the intersection of what you like to do and what people will pay you to do, and dealing with fear and moving past fear and doing a job that's creative and finding meaning in that. So it's a bit more kind of out there, but I still think it has the same goals that the other books that I've written have, which is teaching people to question what they're told. Because nowadays, like, everybody, as soon as you're an expert in something, you start an e-course or something like that, or you release a product that teaches other people who aren't as successful as you to achieve that by just following these steps. And it's just fucking bullshit. Like, it just pisses me off that that's kind of the way that the world works now. Like, as soon as somebody gets a little bit of success, they teach other people how to do it exactly the same way that they did it. And that's no guarantee. Like, you're not going to be successful just because you follow somebody else's path, because then if that was the case, one person would have found one way to success, and every single other person for the history of time would do the exact same thing and be just as successful. And then we'd have like money fights, and there'd be like lineups to buy yachts and things like that. So that's not how it works. So really, every book that I've written, it really tries to get people to question what they think they know. Like with the vegan cookbook, it was just questioning the food you eat. With Be Awesome at Online Business, it was questioning what you think a project should be like if you've never done a website before. And for this one, it's questioning what success means to you and what your values are and how you see creativity, and then how you move forward and apply that to the work that you do.
So this is a good segue to my next question. So our community of creatives, whether it be designers, artists, sculptors, whatever, we need to hear more advice. I hate to say the word, but more actionable advice. Do you have any tips for the person who wants to take the leap and maybe the next step into working for themselves?
Sure, and my biggest advice is fuck advice. Like, I just don't like advice. But I mean, if you want to like do your own thing and you want to start your own company, then that's awesome. And I mean, obviously you can learn from what people before you have done, but take that with a grain of salt and really figure out, like, if you want to run a business, like my goal when I first started my company, it was like, okay, I want to make $1 million a year. And then like halfway through the year, busting my ass, working myself to the bone, and it's like, I wasn't going to hit that goal anyways. But it was like, I don't really care about money enough to like try for that. So I don't need to, because I'm the boss, because it's my business, I don't have to run my business the way a business is supposed to be run. Like, you don't, like, corporations have quarterly earning reports and shareholder accountability and stuff like that. But if you work for yourself, you can do whatever. Like your goal can be to raise money for charity after you paid for your rent. Your goal can be to take as much time off a year as possible. Like one of my friends who is an accountant, which is so not a creative job unless you find numbers creative. Maybe that's the case, but
Yeah.
he brought up, and he lived across the road from me when I lived like up island on Vancouver Island in like a surf community. But his goal for his bit, and he worked freelance even though he worked for big companies doing accounting. His goal for the year was to make enough money to not work anymore. So if he made enough money for the year in 3 months, he'd surf and rock climb for the rest of the year and travel for the rest of the year. And that was his, like, that was success to him, was if he could make enough money in 3 months to live frugally for the whole year, that was success to him. He didn't need to keep making money. He could make enough money to live, and he lived in, like, pretty frugally. But as long as he made enough money in a couple months that he could travel and do whatever he wanted and not work for the rest of the year, he could stay in accounting because accounting he likes, but he would rather be rock climbing, he'd rather be surfing. So, I mean, I think you can make your business align with your own values and your own goals. So getting advice obviously is important. Like, I didn't know how to do like year ends or deal with legal stuff. So obviously any advice in that, or like dealing with clients, is good to probably read a couple books. Mike, what's his name, wrote a book called Design as a Job. I can't believe I forgot his name. But it's on a book apart, and the book is called Design as a Job. And it's a wicked book that talks about how, it's kind of like the flip side of my book in some ways, because it talks about how creatives, and it kind of leans on web design, but it could be applied to anyone, how you approach it as a job in dealing with clients. So you need to learn that kind of stuff, but really you're accountable to yourself when you work for yourself, so you can kind of shape that to be what you want it to be, not what this is what business is supposed to be, or this is what Jeffrey Zeldman does, or something like that. So you can do whatever you want.
So Paul, what's besides your book, what's new in the world of Paul Jarvis? What's coming up?
The book is an all-consuming beast.
Oh wow.
Because there's so much that needs to happen. Like I'm working on edits with my editor, but before that I spent probably 4 months writing it, and then I've got to go through a couple months with my editor, then I got to copy edit it. Then I'm doing a Kickstarter campaign to do a print version of the book, which takes a lot of work. You can't just put it on Kickstarter and hope people back it. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that needs to happen. So there's a lot of stuff with the book happening right now, and the book is really, like, I took 3 or 4 months off this year from design work to really focus on that. So that's kind of tailed off, and I'm doing some design work now, but I'm still working a lot on book-related stuff because I really want to get it out in January. So I'm really pushing myself to get to that. So, but other than that, I do client. It's funny that some people are like, "Oh, I can't believe you still do client work." It's like, well, client work kind of pays my bills.
Yeah.
So until writing or making WordPress themes or something else, like, brings in enough income to do that, then I don't really mind. And plus I kind of like client work. Like I can pick and choose who I work with right now, so I'm really happy that I have awesome clients. Like I love the people that I work with, and they all pretty much become friends too. So it's a good place.
So you work with a lot of entrepreneurs. What
Yes.
do you learn a lot from these folks? I mean, they give you a lot of advice, a lot of insight.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not even as direct as like me asking them for advice, but it's kind of like learning through seeing how they do things, both from the back end of how they run their business as well as from the front end, and seeing kind of how they do things. And it's funny, and it brings me back to the other point. It's because I'm so in book mode, a lot of the book stuff just comes out when I'm talking to people. But the thing that I see with the clients that I work with, and a lot of them are very successful, and they have like best-selling books and blogs and websites read by millions of people and that sort of thing. But they are all kind of, the way that they work and the way that they run their business is what I was talking about. They run their business, and the way that they come across is true to themselves, and it was exactly the way that they were before they were successful, and it's exactly the way that they are now, and they run their businesses the way that they think it needs to be run, and it works. And if you think about it, like when you're starting out, you're like, oh, I want to be like this person. They're so themselves, and they like their personality is contagious, and they're like visionary. Like Richard Branson, no business guy who made as much money as he did was ever like him. So, but we look at those people from where we are, and it's like, oh, I really want to get to a point where I can be myself. And it's like, he didn't start out that way. He didn't start out like suit and tie, like exactly like everybody else. He was just Richard Branson. And his personality and the way that he does business, he's a smart dude. Like, I don't know him personally, obviously, or else he might give me a ticket to the space thing that he's building, which would be really cool.
Oh,
but
wow. Sweet. You said you were invited to something from.
No, if I knew him, I might get to do some of the cool shit that he does all the time.
Man, dude,
but like he was back to the point after my tangent. He was himself in the way that he ran his business, and same with the entrepreneurs that I work with. Like they're pretty true to who they are, and they're like, what you see is what you get. And I don't think people need to wait until they're successful to be themselves. I think people can be themselves all the time. And then when they do achieve success, it becomes more meaningful because they got to it on their own terms. And they don't have to keep up this like front or facade that like, I'm this person that I think people like all the time, because that would be tiring. Like that would take a lot of energy.
And everyone who's listening or watching, just remember you have to be yourself, and there isn't one straight path for all of us to go to that place that we want to be our own boss, essentially. So on another note, Paul, you're a musician, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Your band.
You were asking what I'm doing now. My band also just released an album last week or the week before, so that actually takes up some time as well.
Nice. Mojave, right?
Yes, that's right.
Paul, is there any, where can we find you? We know PJRVS, that's your website.com.
Yeah.
Any other place?
Twitter is usually the best place to find me. I'm not on Facebook or LinkedIn or anything else. I'm on Instagram, but unless you like pictures of rats, then because I have 2 rats, unless you want to look at rats, then but Twitter's the best place. And then the place that I share all of the ideas and the articles and the new things that are coming up is my mailing list. And that's really my favorite place to connect with people. And I say connect with people, it's not just one-way blast. Like I send my emails out usually on Sunday because I need a day to reply to everybody, because I ask questions and I get input and I make it more of a 2-way conversation. And I really think if more people were doing that with mailing lists, more people would really enjoy their mailing list and wouldn't think like, oh, I got to send an email out. Like, oh, it's been 4 months. Like, I wish I could send more emails out. I just don't want to bother people like every single day. So, yeah,
I really enjoy.
Is the best place to find me.
Yeah, I really enjoy your newsletters. They're to the point, sharp. So everyone, you've got to sign up for his new newsletter. It's fantastic. And if you haven't picked up his book, let's see if you can see it here. There it is, Paul Jarvis's book. It's called "Be Awesome at Online Business." And your new book, Everything I Know.
Yes, and that'll be out. There's more information on my website, and that'll be out to January.
Awesome. So, Paul, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll catch you soon.
Cool. Thank you very much.